This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of
You can get the Truefire All Access Pass for as cheap as they ever do it, the $99 thing. So just jump and do that if you're looking for the best price that you can get Truefire All Access for. Guitarists, myself included, we're so focused on guitar and guitar tone and stuff like that that I think sometimes we can kind of miss the forest for the trees. For instance, I'm going to play you a tiny clip now. And can you tell me what you notice is different about this particular clip? One thing is going to have changed. Now, here's the thing. The drums were the only part that changed between those two clips. I don't know if you noticed it first time round, but this is one of those things that I think really does help some folks stand way above the pack. So in terms of, like, you think of someone like Rabea, why does Rabea sound so good so much of the time? I think part of it is down to the fact that actually on his demos and stuff like that, the drums tend to sound really, really good. Or, you know, whoever it is, sometimes it's the players that, like, it's not just the guitar part that they focused on that sounds good. It's like also drums and bits and pieces like that. So Mixwave have actually teamed up with the drummer from Sleep Token. Now, Sleep Token you might not associate with the sort of stuff that I'm necessarily into, but actually I am. It was Lockdown when I discovered their album Sundowning, and one of the major parts about that album that stood out for me, and I think for a lot of people, are the drums on it. So in this video, I kind of wanted to explore this plugin from Mixwave, who are sponsoring this video, and I've actually used their Gojira drums in the past as well, just for a different flavor. I use Native Instruments ordinarily, and in this demo, I'm using two from Sleep Token's DW, essentially, drum set. Mixed and all of that sort of stuff ready. I think this is a real way that if you've not tried some of these things before, you can really unlock some kind of better sounding demos than you get ordinarily. And we see this kind of stuff from other companies, but I think even if you're not into heavier styles, these drum plugins to me sound closer to the drum sounds that I like the sound of. There's like a roomy quality to them, there's an organic quality to them, but also there's this production like sheen to them as well. You can get in there, you can modify things. I'll show you a little how I go about making drum loops, but also with this Sleep Token one there are some groove packs included which could get you on your way and start you making some demos. you're into heavier stuff, of course, it's going to suit you really well. But as I say, even if you're doing sort of like, I start this demo off like in a bit more of a gospel vein, these kind of drums don't only work for metal sounds. Like, they're pretty versatile. The first time that I can remember this sort of thing actually making its way onto an album in this kind of scene was Meshuggah's Catch 33. And I think they sort of paved the way for this. I think there's a little bit of a danger, you know, certainly there are some companies that are kind of fairly ubiquitous in this realm, which I think you can start to get demos starting to sound kind of homogenized. So that's something to be careful of. And what I like to do is actually go in and sort of tweak things a little bit. So I might bring down the tuning of the snare drum. I quite like a low tuned snare drum, and you know, get in there and tweak things a little bit. But wherever you're at, if you've not tried learning sort of drum beats before, my brother was a drummer, and I would sort of go and play drums in his room. So there are some basic principles that you can learn. I plug or sort of write my drums in with a MIDI roll editor, piano roll, however you call it. So basic principles is that your snare drum is either going to be on beats 2 and 4 or on beat 3. Your kick drum will generally be on beat 1, and then you can mess around with the grid and sort of, you know, accent different bits. And your hi-hat is going to be on either 8th notes or 16th notes or quavers or semi-quavers. And that's kind of your starting point. So you go and then the kicks on your 1, whatever, 1, 3, 4. But experiment with this stuff and write your own drum beats. I think it's a really rewarding thing to do, and I think can help you sort of get your head around what makes music work in a little bit of a way. Instead of being so guitar centric, this is like a virtual way of getting behind the drum kit, and I've found it really rewarding. In particular, this Mixwave Sleep Token drum set sounds amazing. Let's jump into the DAW now, and I'll show you some of how it works. Okay, I wanted to show you this here. So we've got the actual plugin here, which is really useful. So what we can do, you can mix all of your individual stuff. So you've also got like default settings and different mixes and all that sort of stuff. It's really useful from that point of view. The other thing that's really cool here, so for instance, if you want a bit more of a unique sound, for one of the things that I do is tune down the snare. Another really useful thing here, if you're not used to writing drum grooves, is that you have a groove pack light included, which I guess implies that there's going to be more packs available to buy if you're particularly into this sort of stuff. But as I say, you can get in there. Tweak things how you want. mix things however it is that you think you want things to sound. Now let's go back to grooves. Stop that. So what I did here, essentially, you can, once you find a groove that you like, just drag it onto the DAW. But I had this idea, more gospel-y. But you could get in there, you could see what is it about this that is making the groove work. And this is a way that you could learn how drum beats are kind of constructed. So typically, you might find a snare on the 2 and the 4, or if it's halftime, on the 3. 4. So we could even go in and edit, and if you press Control D in Reaper, it doubles it across the bar. So now there's going to be a snare on beat 2 and 4. So listen again. Another cool thing you could do, just stick it on 3. But really, this is a process of trial and error, finding grooves that work for you. One thing not to do is to just slam velocity all the way up all the time. You get a more realistic thing going on if you keep some of these dynamics in or program them in. So if I was just starting totally from scratch, I might go like this. So this would be like my... So that's going across. Keep, and then often makes sense to start a bar with a cymbal. And then get a hi-hat rhythm. I like to occasionally have an open hi-hat. Oftentimes, if you pair that with a kick, it will sound good. And then sometimes it's nice to just take something like this so the accents can happen in a different place. Right, let's listen. Right, now the next thing I'm going to do is this. Take the velocity down, but this is now turning it into a 16th hi-hat beat. And then at the end of a 4-bar section, I might stick in a fill. And then you kind of got, so that's like my drum beat now, as someone who used to play drums a little bit. Right, and then you can get a little spicier with the fills. The fills are the more difficult thing, I think, to get sounding. So, yeah, that's just one thing you can do, and like it really does elevate beyond just using like dodgy sounding drums. An extra. I don't know, that's just the way that I like to kind of take things beyond just sounding, you know, like a total drum machine. There are other options for this kind of stuff, but Mixwave, they've got Gojira and now this Sleep Token plugin. I think they sound really, really good. And even if you're not doing heavier stuff, I think they just sound like a good sort of drum. So that's mine. This is the real drummer. You know, obviously the drummer from Sleep Token is going to come up with better grooves than me, and I think that's quite a cool thing that we now have access to.